So our format today is going to be a little different. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with Mr. Kevin's, oh, sorry, I skipped you, Kevin. Mr. Kevin Sullivan, who is a branch manager, assistant vice president of Truist Bank. And he has the pleasure of being located at the branch in Chestnut Hill. And he'll be discussing a lot of the financial and money management concepts and techniques that you should utilize and topics you should be thinking about. And then Courtney Spencer, who is a former Tyler BFA, a current adjunct at Tyler, and CEO of Dearfellow Design Studio, will discuss her financial journey and some recommendations for you. And before we dive in, what I'd like to ask Kevin and then Courtney, just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you are, exactly what you're doing now. So Kevin, you want to lead off with that?
I usually go ladies first, but that's absolutely fine. My name is Kevin Sullivan. I am a branch leader and assistant vice president at Truist Bank. Many of you have probably not heard of Truist before. That's because BB&T just merged with SunTrust Bank in the South to create Truist Financial. I have a bachelor's of science in sports medicine, athletic training. I obviously has nothing to do with where I'm at today, but it's been a 15-year journey in banks, and it's taken me here. I've had experience as a commercial lender, a small business lender, wealth manager for a few years, and now I've kind of found my niche in small business development here in Chestnut Hill, and for the most part, most of the city or anywhere that'll have me. So I appreciate the introduction, Alan, and I'll turn it over to Courtney.
Hello, Alan. You did a good job kind of covering the basics. But yeah, I went to Tyler School of Art, Temple University, got my BFA in graphic and interactive design. I have been also teaching at Tyler for 5 years. I have been teaching courses ranging from branding to infographic design to designing apps and mobile websites. And I am starting a design studio called Dearfellow. We work with clients ranging from pre-launch ventures to growth stage ventures, and anything they need. So branding, website design, app design, marketing, creative, all that good stuff. And some of our clients include Barbara Corcoran from the Shark Tank, Anthropology, Bumble, to smaller startups that still aren't out in the world yet.
Great. So when you're going on Shark Tank?
It's funny, I actually just had a client call me saying that they are going on Shark Tank, but we've been working with Barbara Corcoran for almost 4 years now, and they just committed to recommending us to anybody that they invest in this year on the show. So hopefully that'll be a big unlock for us as we kick off our company.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, Kevin, you can share your screen and teach us everything we need to know about managing money.
Well, we'll certainly try. Let's get this pulled up. You all have to let me know when you can see everything.
You're good.
All good? All right, cool. Get that. All right. So obviously this is part of our Growing Your Business segment that we use, and we deliver financial literacy, whether it's to our clients, to prospects, to classrooms, really to anyone who will listen and wants to be part of the journey. But we start every meeting that we have internally, whether it is high level senior management all the way down to tellers or anywhere else in between, with our purpose, mission, and values. And I'll leave you with it. We are here to inspire and build better lives and communities. And that's the biggest thing. So when we talk about banks, usually the mission statement, most people would assume, has something to do with deposits, loans, and everything else. We believe in community engagement and involvement and doing things the right way, because when our clients win, we all win. All right. So obviously, as Alan mentioned, our primary goal here today is to talk about some money management and some cash flow strategies. Very candidly, I start on the personal side and we kind of move through to the business side. Because at the individual, whether it's the CEO, an employee, if your financial house is not in order, it's going to make it really hard to run your business, whether it's on on your personal life or in your business life or with any venture that you're looking to do. So the first thing that we always talk about is determining what kind of money do you have, right? Everybody hears the term disposable income out there. What does that actually mean, right? So a lot of businesses and certain businesses target disposable income specifically, but what does that mean to you? It's a very easy formula, as you can see on the screen. It's your total net income, so that's after any taxes that you pay, 401k contributions, or anything in your pay. It's what do you take home afterwards minus all your monthly expenses. Anything left over is considered your disposable income. All right. The most important thing, and truthfully the biggest thing that I see in clients on a daily basis is a lack of tracking or a lack of record keeping. It's really hard to solve any problem if you don't know what that problem is, right? If there is a problem at all. I know the screen is pretty small, but simple spreadsheets, whether it's Excel, there's a whole bunch of personal finance software that's out there. Truthfully, selfish plug on my end, Truist is working on one to add to our mobile app, which is a really cool piece. But it really lays down where are you spending your money on a monthly basis, right? We've got a couple categories: personal and family, food, your debt, and your household. Obviously, necessities take priority over everything, but you can really identify maybe some areas that you're spending way too much in, or maybe not enough in. Maybe we're not putting enough towards knocking down some high interest debt. Maybe we're spending too much money going out for food every week, right? My girlfriend reminds me that the grocery store is a viable piece to every diet, you know? But there's three main budgeting strategies that we talk to clients about on a regular basis. It starts with controlling your spending, managing any debt that you have outstanding, and saving for your future. So controlling your spending is probably, and especially when I was in college, and I was talking to Alan about this a little bit before we got started, controlling your spending is the hardest part of the journey. It's why it's the first part that's here. Making sure that you have a budget that's real and reasonable. It would be wonderful for me to sit here and say, I don't want to spend more than $1,000 a month. That's not reality. That's just not, I work 40 miles from home, gas is expensive, I have a mortgage. That's not reasonable. You need to take a look at your monthly expenses that won't change, your fixed expenses, and kind of start there and branch off for making that budget. Candidly, cutting costs is the easiest way to increase your disposable income. That's not always an easy thing. Maybe you have too many subscriptions for streaming services. Maybe there's the added expenses that go in monthly that you could do without. This is a real popular one right now. Everybody talks about getting a side hustle. Depending on the job that you have, most small business owners that I work with are putting in 60, 70 hours a week at minimum. So taking on a second expense or a second job is usually not there or not available to them. But the most important thing, back to the tracking that we talked about previously, periodic checkups are the best way to make sure that you're on track. Everybody, especially when you go through, you have certain benchmarks that you need to hit or prerequisites to get into certain classes. This is no different. Goal setting and periodic checkups with a financial provider, a financial consultant, or just your day-to-day banker are very important if it's not something that you focus on daily. This is a very, very big one, and I won't spend too much time on this right now. I would imagine, show of hands, most people probably have some student loan debt that's out there, but we won't get into that too much into depth here. But a good rule of thumb is 10% of your monthly income to pay down your debt. But that really depends on what your debt looks like, whether it's high interest credit cards or student loan debt or whatever the case may be. Okay. Third one is saving for your future. In the same way that you take 10% to pay down your debt, there should be 10% of your paycheck going to an emergency fund. I think we're all familiar. There was a fairly large financial and health emergency that's happened over the last 24, 27 months, whatever the case may be. A lot of people were not prepared for the loss of income or for a downturn in the economy. The average American has saved less, that is not able to meet a $400 bill if it were to come up out of the ordinary. And that's a very scary concept. But setting aside money for the things that you want to work towards, whether it's a new home, a new car, or starting a new business. Okay. But when we talk about planning and we talk about kind of visualizations and where do we want to be, I think for our small business owners, this is even more important, or our entrepreneurs. Setting a goal and where you want to be in a 1-year term, a 2-year term, 10 years, whatever the case may be, there needs to be benchmarks along the way that kind of help guide that process for you. Every business, I can get into specifics, but every business, every individual has a different goal or has a different end game. So focusing on what matters to you and setting reasonable, attainable goals is very important. Again, we won't spend too much time on credit tonight. But I did tell, just a personal anecdote very quickly, I did tell Alan getting on the call, I wish somebody had talked to me about credit in college. When I was in college, I was issued a $10,000 Chase credit card with very, very minimal income. I actually played drums in a bar band, gigging around a little bit, so my income was very sporadic, and they approved me for a $10,000 limit. Obviously, that did not go well, and I spent the next few years kind of working myself out of that. Even after I started working at the bank, I still spent some nights gigging around for some extra money to knock out that debt. So learning credit is all about developing and maintaining good habits and learning to spend within your means. Credit scores are important because it's what a bank like us, it's what we're going to use to determine whether we lend money to you or not. And that goes for whether it's on the personal end for homes, for some landlords do, a lot of landlords do credit checks. It can also affect you there. But it can also impact your ability to start a business and obtain financing to do so. We always say we apply for loans when we don't necessarily need them. Because when you need them the most, they're usually the most difficult to obtain. But as far as our entrepreneurs go, this is probably the most important thing that we see. So I understand that the class kind of already went through some formation, whether it's an LLC, an S Corp, C Corp, whatever the case may be. But separating your business and your personal expenses and your finances is critical. First and foremost, your accountant will love you forever if you kind of separate church and state a little bit. But we see a lot of individuals run into problems when they don't do this. There needs to be a separate bank account. There needs to be a separate tax identification number, because you as an individual typically create these entities to provide yourself with some level of security or safety. To separate yourself from the business, you need to do that with your finances as well. Some clients will, kind of borrow money against their personal interest to fund business ventures. That's okay, but you really want to separate church and state as much as you possibly can. Candidly, some of my clients won't even bank with us personally because they don't even want to bank in the same place that they run their business. I selfishly don't encourage that, but it's really up to the beholder. When we talk about monthly expenses and we talk about, kind of operating, keeping your house in order, we talked about tracking your expenses, whether it's household, whether it's personal, work-related. Cash flow foundations is a real big piece in what helps businesses get loans, but what also helps you stay afloat and operate your business. You have to itemize how you collect. It seems very simple, but you have to figure out, how do I collect money? There we go. How do I collect money? Do you accept credit cards? Do you accept checks? Do you use PayPal? Do you use Venmo? Do you use Cash Apps? What's the methodology and what's the fee for that service? How do you spend the money, right? Do you wire money out of the account? Do you send ACHs? Do you use debit cards? Do you use credit cards? You have to figure out the monthlies coming in and where your fixed expenses are. But the only real way to do that is to put it on paper. Or in today's world, a lot of our clients use Quicken. Almost every bank's online software is compatible with a lot of the different money and tracking software. So we find that our clients use this quite a bit. But these are a lot of things, and just to kind of reiterate, these are a lot of the things that I noticed that a lot of our small business clients don't always think of. How do I make payments to my staff? Do I need a payroll service? Do I have insurance? Do I have a savings account? Do I own a building? There's a lot of things that go into the monthly money management, but tracking that and having real honest conversations with yourself is very, very critical to success there. Okay. Obviously, when we talk about a business, there's a lot of different things that go outside of the personal side. So I won't get too much in the depth on here, but just know there are a lot of things to factor in, whether you're going to have a brick and mortar space, whether you will be completely virtual, what kind of insurances you may need, and how you're going to manage your monthly obligations with the income stream that you have. These are different things that businesses will use to indicate, positive cash flow or a negative cash flow. Two of the biggest ones on here, and I won't kind of beat on everything that's here, but accounts receivable and accounts payable, right? It's who owes, a very simple way to look at it, who owes me money, and who am I expecting money from, and who am I able to pay? A lot of businesses operate on a 30, 60, or 90-day period, where in some cases they may perform work today, but they may not be receiving payment on that job for 90 days. How do you run your business? How are you able to meet the monthly needs when you know you're not getting paid for 3 months? Business models have changed a lot in post-COVID. Obviously, we're doing this virtual tonight, where I would imagine in other years this may have been a live event. But the merchant process is the last one I'll touch on down there. Do you accept cash, or do you do the merchant piece? And that's accepting credit cards for your business. Being able to track that is a very, very big piece of making sure that your cash flow monthly is in good shape. A lot of the credit card companies do charge fees, so you always want to make sure that you keep that in mind as well. Little information on merchant services. I candidly forgot to take this slide out, so we're just going to move right along. These are some of the resources that we connect some of our clients with. You'll see my old peer on here. You can still email him, just not at that email address. But these are some of the organizations that are set up to help our small businesses. Obviously, outside of the wonderful program that you guys have, there's mentorship programs, there's information from the Small Business Administration. Applying for licensures and operating things in each state is also very important. And you do that with the state of Pennsylvania, obviously, if you are in Pennsylvania. All right. skip that one. So here at Truist, and just we'll kind of wrap up with, obviously we're here tonight talking about cash flow and money management. This is something that we do for all of our clients. I won't get into some of the specifics here, but we do offer financial wellness. We do offer small business development and entrepreneurship skills at no cost to our clients. And a really cool part that came out from Truist as soon as we rebranded in the fall was money and mindset. It's an entire website dedicated to teaching people how to actively manage money, how to build, rebuild credit, suggestions, calculators. You know, if I have $10,000 worth of debt, how quickly can I pay that off if I do $250 a month? But it's a really great way to take a step back, and the mindset piece is really, it's a psychological thing. How we spend money and how we do things is very psychological and very habitual. I'm reminded all the time at home, if I could do the same thing each and every day, I probably would. But there needs to be some variety and some different thinking in the way that you attack your personal life. And if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's not working. I think somebody said that's the definition of insanity. So utilizing the tools, tips, and suggestions that are out there at no cost is also very valuable. This is where we usually open up for questions, but we'll hold that for another time. And that is my contact information and a horrendous picture that my friend Shay added to the presentation. I think.
Okay, so thanks, Kevin. That was great. We're going to come back to you shortly. I do just want to make one comment, and it's something we referenced also last week. Accounts receivable is often a death knell, not just for startups and freelancers, for any small business. And a great way to minimize your potential issues, and Tony mentioned this last week, is structure your proposals that you either ask for 50% of the fee up front once the proposal's signed, before you start spending a ton of time and expense on it. Or what I typically did in my consulting days, I go 33% at signing, 33% midway, and then 33% at the end. And yes, I know I'm missing a third in each of those. So I just wanted to bring that up. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions about it. Courtney, hopefully you can also shed some light. But I just want to bring it up because so often it is a bottomless pit for businesses, and you can proactively try to manage that. Okay, good. So Courtney, time to talk. So you told us what you're doing now. Can you take us through your journey from when you got your BFA degree at graduation until where you are here and now?
Yes. So graduated from Tyler. At the time, I had a full-time job at Lilly Pulitzer over in King of Prussia at their headquarters doing marketing creative. And I really wanted to be in product design, so designing apps and websites. So I found a co-founder and we started a company that was an app. It told users how long lines were to get into bars at Penn State. And when we started, we had to go through all the motions that Kevin just reviewed. We had to create an LLC, and like, please keep in mind, I was an art student. I took one business course. I did not know what I was doing, and neither did my co-founder. So we really had to figure it out as we go. And I hope that all of you took screenshots of some of Kevin's slides because they are very helpful links. I wish I knew. So we set up our LLC, we set up our business bank account, and we did a round of fundraising with friends and family. And we created this app, we hired developers, we hired interns, and we launched it at Penn State 2 years later. And we had over half of our target demographic download the app in the first 2 weeks. So it was very successful. However, we knew that we needed another round of fundraising to expand to other cities and to other demographics. And so we kind of looked around, and our interns were getting interviews at Amazon and Tesla because they had this startup on their resume. And my co-founder got a great job, and I was able to secure clients that were mobile app and website design clients. So we all kind of looked at each other. We're like, we're making more money in other ways. Let's put lines on pause and pursue our other businesses. So that gave me the opportunity to, one, go to Tyler and start teaching a course about mobile app design, which was the start of my career as a professor, but also start my design company, Courtney Spencer Creative LLC. So once again, had to go back to the bank and have an LLC for myself that was just for me, have my own business bank account. And from them, I started working with great clients. And some of my first clients, I mentioned a few of them, Bumble, Anthropology and Urban Outfitters, Comcast and Korn Ferry were some of the first clients right out of the gate. And I had so much fun just going into different teams and working with them. And it ranged from consulting. So I was going into the office and being integrated into people's teams, to fully designing branding or website design for clients like Barbara Corcoran, for example. We did her entire website. So I did that for a few years, and my boyfriend and I decided to move to LA. And at the time, Alan, I'm sure we can dig into this a bit too, but I did not account for that move when I had started my business. And as many of you may know, the cost of living in LA is significantly more expensive than Philadelphia. To give you a quick insight, our rent doubled from $2,000 a month to $4,000 a month. And so when I moved, I was kind of in this sticky situation with my business, and my clients also didn't transfer over. So once again, I was kind of in this position to reconsider what my options were. And at the time, after about 2 years of being in LA, I had this great job offer at Anheuser-Busch that moved us back to the East Coast as well. So I ended up taking it. And the role was to be the head of design for Anheuser-Busch's venture capital firm. And so what I did was I worked with businesses on their design strategy, and they range from pre-launch ventures, so ventures that aren't live yet. They're building everything so they can launch, to growth level businesses that have over 20 designers on their team, and they're looking to optimize their business. And our businesses were global. So the year the pandemic hit, I had 18 international trips planned. It was a really fun job, working with designers all over the world. And then fast forward to now, right after, I guess, mid-pandemic, I left to start a design studio, and kind of go back to that LLC and switch over to an S Corp and hire some designers who I've worked with in the past, to take on more clients outside of Anheuser-Busch. So taking a very similar model and expanding it to design.
Okay, great. All right, so I want to amplify on one thing that Courtney said when she said she didn't anticipate or manage or expect the move to LA. And we have had a number of freelance panelists in the past talk about, although you need to keep them separate, you need to be sure to think about your personal finances as you're figuring out how to launch your business. We had one gentleman who opened his own fashion business, who actually at age 40 had to move back with his parents to be able to afford to, purchase inventory or to place orders. And he did that knowingly because that was a sacrifice. But you knew, and this goes to what Kevin said, you sort of need to manage both, realizing they are interrelated, although not hopefully legally.
Yeah.
All right. So Courtney, I'm going off script for 30 seconds.
Do it.
Bumble, Barbara Corcoran, all these great clients. You're relatively young, a newbie in the business. are you just that great that they all came to you, or how did you get name clients like that?
I have been incredibly fortunate with my network. I have not, and to this day, have not had to do any marketing, like heavy marketing. It's something that I will start doing because I would like to go beyond my network, but I could keep going with just my network itself. But that is also something that I'm a salesman's daughter, so it's something that comes natural to me. I love networking. I love talking to people. But I will say, even going back to what you were saying, like there was a point in my career where I felt like every single person I met, they had to lead to a client somehow. So I think that's one thing I've had to manage is different, like really separating personal and business and being a little bit more intentional about who I network with for work and the expected outcome.
Okay, great. And not to correct you, but to correct you, you said you're very fortunate with your network. Networking is not a matter of luck. And the second day we talked about how to market yourself. Why should people choose you? It's because you have to make a great effort at networking.
Yeah,
That's the best source, just like it's the best source for jobs, which I keep on telling everyone about to graduate. It's the best source for clients.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I think on top of that too, I was just on a call with somebody just sharing with them, hey, I'm going off and starting my own company. And the first thing they said was, how can I help? I want to help. And I think previously I would have shied away from that, but now I'm like, okay, this is specifically what I need help with, and very clearly communicating what you need confidently helps in those scenarios.
Okay, great. All right, so you've had this very successful career, but my understanding is that early on you sort of had some real challenges, and most of those emanating from either your money management or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit to everyone here what happened?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, I mean, the two that stand out, and I'll dive into one specifically, is one is Lines, and how we spent the money on design and development to launch the app and marketing for the first 6 months, but we were not very intentional about how to monetize the app, and we knew that we would have to heavily rely on investment. So that was one thing that is very memorable and I learned a lot from. And moving forward, I made sure that every company that I started after, I knew we would be able to make money off of. It's part of starting a company. It's the difference between a business and a hobby. And then the second is, like I said, with Courtney Spencer Creative LLC, moving to LA, I thought it would be okay. Like everything, like I had said, I had a strong network in Philadelphia, and it came very easily to me to get business. But once we moved to LA, the costs were significantly more expensive for rent and for even just buying a coffee, but also for traveling to go meet clients. An Uber was significantly more expensive. Co-working spaces I had in Philadelphia, I had an office at Temple that I would work at or hang out at WeWork, and that all of a sudden became inaccessible or a lot more expensive in LA. So those costs were definitely different, and I did not manage my own income. So I did not raise my rates or try to take on bigger clients. So the money didn't even out. The other one too, that we had talked about, was just my network was really in Philly. And I thought that at the time this wasn't pandemic, this was 2-3 years before. So I thought that I could get away with remote work. I definitely could now, but my clientele did definitely dip off because I wasn't having that face-to-face relationship with them. And I did find it significantly harder to create a new network in LA and find more business. I think it also is special to that city because it is very specific on like the Hollywood and movie and video industry. That's very different from what I do. So I didn't manage my future costs and income correctly. And that kind of put me in a bad spot.
Okay, great. All right. So one of the things you said in terms of what you learned, you said now you're sure that all your companies, and I don't know if you use the term will make money, but something to the point of, I'll say you're monetizing your products or services. How do you do that? I mean, it's easy to say, hey, I got to be sure my business is going to make money.
Yeah.
But like, how do you turn that into reality?
Yeah. Well, I think, and I don't know if this answers your question, but for me, the biggest thing is being intentional about my profit and loss, my P&L, and being a lot better about estimating my income for the year. Yeah, that is something that I did not do before, and something I learned when working with ventures. Really understanding, like, if before I spend $1 with my company, what is the expected return on it? And if there isn't a return on it, should I be spending my money here? And also thinking about, like, when I do receive money and thinking about my rates, okay, well, if you break down my rate, how much of it goes to the designer who is working, how much of it goes back to the business, and how much goes to X, Y, and Z in saving. So I really think about using that P&L really helps me think about money and managing my business in a logical way instead of based on emotions.
Interesting. Okay, so you talked about managing a P&L, and Kevin showed a P&L format. Is there a particular one you use? And don't worry, Kevin won't be insulted if it's not the Truist one. Do you have your own? Do you get something off the web? How do you manage your P&L and track it?
Yeah, I have a good friend who was in investment banking, and she sat down with me one of the first days I started my company to put together one. But I also use QuickBooks. I love QuickBooks. If you are starting a company and you haven't downloaded it, I think it's a great resource to just pull up on your phone and just filter through everything. And they also have a great tab to literally see a P&L that is connected to your account, which an Excel sheet is not. It may. Once again, I am an art student. I'm not great with Excel.
Okay, good. Okay, so one more question and then we'll open it up for Q&A. What's your one piece of advice in the area of finance, money management, etc.? Let's start for people who are looking or have just started their freelance business.
For anybody who is just starting, my advice would be to surround yourself with people who have done this before and are where you want to be in 5 years. I was very fortunate to work with a career coach for a few years, and she kind of described to me like this tribe of mentors around you. So you have somebody who is a mentor who can tell you honest advice. You have somebody who is an advisor, and they give you, like, as Kevin is giving you, like, very specific information about working with a bank. I would be very intentional about, like, setting out the gap or identifying the gaps in your current tribe and going after mentors who can help you. I had a very limited circle around me when I first started, and I can see that the way that I made decisions was differently because of that. Like, for example, I was showing with Alan earlier, I set up an LLC incorrectly when I first did it, and I'm paying for that now. And if I had an advisor or somebody who knew what they were doing to really guide me through it, I would have made that decision very differently. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice, is to identify where your gaps are and to really surround yourself with people who you can really honestly talk to about, how do I set this up? What are learnings that you have had in the past that would help me be more successful in the future, and just really push you in the right direction.
Okay, great. And Courtney and I did not rehearse this Q&A, but as she's speaking about mentors, that is one of the real benefits of our Springboard to Launch Accelerator coming up. And additionally, IEI has over 90 engaged mentors, usually successful freelancers, successful investors, etc. So a double plug, apply to the Springboard to Launch Accelerator, but also, and anyone, alums, grads, undergrads, anyone who's on this call, or this session, apply to become part of the 1810 accelerator at the IEI. You'll get nonstop mentoring, and as your needs evolve in terms of specialty areas, functional target audiences, they'll be unbelievably valuable. Okay, Courtney, part B. What's your one piece of financial advice for people with established businesses?
Hire me for design. No brainer.
All right, if she's doing a plug, come bank with Truist if that's the case.
All right.
Come see me in Chestnut Hill.
Okay, so we now see that Courtney knows how to sell, Kevin knows how to sell. And since Lindsay and I want to show we could sell, while you're doing that, come for an IEI, undergrad or graduate degree, or just some alumni courses. Okay, so now everyone's been sold. Okay, great. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Kevin. We're going to start taking questions. So the first one, Kevin, is for you. How is Truist? Oh, and Carl's upset. I didn't say you should visit the SBDC. You should definitely do that. Carl is responsible for us having Kevin, and Carl is a unbelievably great partner for our freelancing efforts and everything else. And he's also very nice. And
he's a former gigger like me.
Anything else, Carl, you want me to say about you? No, Carl's muted.
Nah, it's okay. No.
Okay. Okay.
Some of the things that Courtney was describing with problems with the LLC and all were things that we can help with. So come visit us, Courtney.
Only if you hire her to do your design work, it's that. Okay, so Kevin, how is Truist different from any other bank in regard to programs for small business?
That's a phenomenal question. Truthfully, this is the 5th bank that I've worked for in my career. I've been part of what banks will be called financial wellness in certain cases. This is the only bank that I have ever worked for that actually we have something called Operation Hope, where we will actually go through entrepreneurship with you. We will do training programs for employee leadership. We have more resources available to us after completing a $66 billion merger and now being the 6th largest bank in North America. We have the resources and the passion to bring small business to life and to separate ourselves from our competitors.
Okay, great.
And I'm here. That helps, right?
Yes, it does. All right, here's a question for both of you. You both talked about financial planning and P&L and whatever and budgeting. As a freelancer or a young design business, and Carl, you could jump in on this if you'd like. How do you forecast revenues? Plus or minus 30 or 40%. So who would like to go first with that one?
I would say I'm not directly responsible for forecasting revenue. I am responsible for managing our annual budget here at the store and the Philadelphia region to that extent. How we go about it is we look at 3-year trends going back and what has our business been the last 3 years. We always ask the question, what will our market give us when we take a look at setting expectations for the year? So will the Chestnut Hill area give me $50 billion in deposits in the next 12 months? No. That's not going to have, what will our market give us? It will give us a lot of small business leads. It will give us a lot of deposit accounts. It will give us a lot of, so it's kind of taking a look at the landscape, but really a 3-year trend on where the business has been to really predict where it's going to be in the next 12 months is where I would start.
Okay, so Kevin, if I could follow up and dig a little deeper, how about for your clients who are just starting their businesses?
So it depends on, I would say it depends on the nature of the business. It really depends on, you know, whether you're doing design consulting, whether you're doing residential real estate construction. I've got barbershops, I've got nonprofits. Everyone is a little bit different, but really taking a look into, so what I've gotten out of this call so far is really taking a look at specificity and what you want to do. I would say that really is to the business and the specificity within your area or your business. You know, restaurants, you know, we do a lot of business with restaurants and cash businesses. They take a long time to become profitable or become cash positive because the overhead is insane. On the flip side, an IT consulting firm that I work with up the street here, their overhead is nice and low because there's 2 of them in an office that they own. They don't have overhead. It's been, you know, profit from day one.
Okay. Courtney.
So as a new business, so I've been around long enough to understand kind of the trends of businesses and when they are setting their yearly goals and are going to start thinking about a rebrand or thinking about a website design is typically in the beginning or the fall, beginning of the year or the fall. And a lot of businesses do tend to be a bit slower in the summer and especially during the holidays. So I have like the basic trends down, but I am definitely going after new types of businesses that I don't have a good understanding on. So it's data that I'm collecting, but I think where I'm looking to grab that unknown data is from advisors and people who are working in that industry. So I can really understand from them, when is the time to be really marketing and networking? When are the times to be heads down working? Because new clientele isn't going to pick up as much. For me, one big strategy is to partner with a few venture capital firms. And I know that they're starting companies at a very specific time of the year. So I need to be really networking at specific times. But it's something that I'm really trying to figure out. And Kevin, if you have any other suggestions, you have to let us know.
Absolutely. I learn from my clients, so
yeah.
Happy to help.
Cool. But that is like, for that advisor moment, that is visibility that nobody else has visibility to, and it's so helpful.
Okay, great. Carl, not to put you on the spot, but you have just in all your work with startups, real small businesses, anything you want to add?
Well, it's certainly, yeah, for a startup and early stage company, it's very difficult because you don't have the historical information that Kevin was referring to with the bank to look at. What seems to work well is to assemble a plan on what you think you can do and how you're going to do it in building your business. So for instance, as Courtney was saying, yeah, okay, the venture cap, the investor side of things, yeah, that seems like a market for her to get to the companies that need her help through them. And so having a plan on how to do that and then executing on that plan and assuming that, okay, from everyone I'm going to contact, I might get some business through 1 out of every 5, say, and just take that measure and then estimate what that would convert into in sales. The difficulty, yeah, as Kevin indicated, you know, I've been involved in music. My son's very involved in music. He's a Boyer graduate and is a professional musician out in LA, in fact. He, you know, certainly during the pandemic, I mean, he had tours of Europe and the Midwest and fellowships and residencies all scheduled, and they all blew up as soon as the pandemic hit. And he went for about a year making very little, did a couple of studio sessions, and that was it. And had to pick up some other stuff on the side. So yeah, that was a catastrophic type thing. But even in normal times, if he's gigging and making most of his money from gigging, it's up and down and around, it's very seasonal, that kind of thing. And you need to understand that. You need to understand that, you know, from November until New Year's Eve, you're going to make a ton of money. And then nothing's going to happen for a month, month and a half before you start getting gigs again. So you need to fill that in with other things. And that's the other thing that with freelancers, I think is important is, yes, you want to be a, you know, in his case, a playing and composing musician, but you need to have other things to smooth out those rough parts, those, you know, so taking your talents and using them a different way is an important thing to look at as well. Kind of diversifying, if you like, you know, sort of like corporations do. But diversifying to using that, but getting back to you know, predicting your income. The other thing to be careful of, and I don't think it got touched on so far in this, is that when you make $5,000 on a project with a client, you don't get to keep $5,000. And it's important that you understand that you're going to have to pay, you may have to pay somebody that helped you with it. You may have to pay, you know, for all your expenses and that kind of thing related to that project. But you also need to tuck away a fairly large portion of that for when you have to pay the taxes on it all. And yeah, the one thing to remember is that your total taxes on, if you're in, say you're doing $60,000 a year in sales, your total taxes, just income taxes related to that, are going to be on the order of 35% of everything you make. So you need to keep that in mind and make sure you bank that money away. I have a lot of clients that set up a separate account, a second savings account or checking account for their business, and they automatically put that money away after every time they get paid, just to make sure the money's there. So that's another important thing while you're doing your projections. It's not just sales, it's also what your expenses are going to be over the year as well.
Okay.
That was a
Okay,
long-winded answer, sorry.
no, it was quality wins. Okay, so that leads to the next question. How do you project expenses? Courtney, you're smiling or smirking. You want to start?
No, I'm currently thinking through this now. I'm playing it very safe, and I'm really just breaking it down by the hour and thinking about like the hourly rate that I charge a client, how much can I pay somebody and still have a certain percentage over for taxes and for the business, and profiting from that. And then, so that, I mean, we don't have a studio, we don't have a working space right now. I don't have too many overhead costs. So I'm trying to think about like the things that we need to be successful. Do we need access to user experience research? There are a few great tools out there that we're considering, even like paying for Slack, emails, hosting for the website, things like that. So there are a lot of like upfront costs that we'll need to pay, but how much can we afford right now? What can we push out to next year? Or let's say we do bring in a bunch of business, when do we pull the trigger on those expenses this year? So I don't have an answer. I just have a lot of questions that are going through my head.
Okay, good. Kevin or Carl, I'm not putting you on the spot, but just feel free to share any thoughts.
I would agree with I would agree with Courtney. It's usually, and what I see a lot with our clients is try to put down as much fixed stuff as you can. So if you have brick and mortar space, your tax, you know, if you know what you're shooting for from a revenue standpoint, from a gross and a net, you can probably figure out what you need for taxes, and you can attack it that way. But the best way that I've seen is to live and breathe in your business with our clients. The ones that are not as involved from the day to day, that pay a manager or a consultant or whatever, the ones that are involved in their businesses tend to have a better feel and an expectation for where those unexpected expenses would come from. They can usually kind of plot out the expected stuff, but I mean, life happens. You know, sometimes there's a pandemic, sometimes we move out to LA, sometimes, you know, your boss asks you to come all the way down to Chestnut Hill. You know, life happens, and what do we do when things are unexpected?
Okay, so one comment that Kevin and Courtney, you both touched on, I want to reemphasize. Minimize your fixed costs as much as possible. Because at the end of the day, fixed costs means they're fixed no matter how good or bad your business is. And if you're not getting the revenues to be able to afford and amortize those fixed costs, it's a great way to lose your business. So as much as you can, get rid of the fixed costs, which is why most people don't buy their own offices, or nowadays working from home don't even rent as a variable a workspace. So another issue that often comes up, and I'll start with Courtney. How do you determine how much to charge?
So I'm trying to kind of figure out a sweet spot. I will usually base it on the minimum hours it takes. So the cost for design, development, SEO specialists, brand specialists, like how many people will it take and what is the cost of that? So that's where I'll begin. But then I do consider what is the value that it has for the business. So if I know that this is going to be a major business and this logo is going to be seen on all of the 80% of Sephora shelves, and they're going to grow by X%. They have they're backed by X, Y, and Z investor. I know that we're going to have to bring in some serious specialists, and it's going to have to be of high quality. So I would adjust my pricing from there. And even on the flip side, if it's somebody who is a new venture and they don't have a lot of funding right now, and it's just something that they need to get out so they can start collecting data and learning about their user, then we might go back a little bit further and say, hey, I can cut down on budget, knowing that you're going to be a great client in the future. So the two things I kind of base it on are, one, the cost it's going to take me to do this, and then two, the value it will bring to the business.
Okay. Okay. So I'll ask a rhetorical question. Do you ever take options or equity or a partial ownership for a startup or a company that cannot pay you what you desire? And then Kevin and Carl, I'd love your perspective from a more institutional, legal, whatever standpoint.
I do not, because I am very much running a business and I need to be paying people. Maybe if I had a unicorn situation on my hands and I really believed in the founder, I believed in the people on the team, but more importantly, I had the cash to back it up, and that's not something that I needed at the time, I would maybe consider it, but as a new business, that's not something that I would do.
Okay. Kevin or Carl, thoughts? Is that something people should totally stay away from?
I mean, Carl, I'll defer to you. I mean, the banker starts weighing in on this one, it gets into liability. So, Carl, all yours.
Yeah, I'll arrest you, Kevin. I've run into this quite a bit. I also have two confirmed, actually in existence, but I'm not doing much at the moment since I'm kind of full-time with Fox and Temple and all that. But one of them is management consulting that deals with early stage companies that are commercializing new technologies. The other one is basically a technical company that works with companies that are in the research stage moving into commercialization. Both of those types of clients do not have money. So they're the kind that offer you, oh, well, if you do this, yeah, I'll give you 2% equity in the company, that kind of thing. I've never accepted that. Basically, yeah, my approach has been if the client cannot afford a reasonable cost for the type of work that they're asking us to do, then they probably can't afford to build the company because it does take money to build the company. And if they can't build the company, then my 2% is worth 0. So I might as well just do the work for free in the first place. But from a legal standpoint, it's you want to make sure if you do something like that, that the paperwork is all vetted by an attorney to make sure that it is iron tight. That the deliverables normally you're going to be tied to things that you're delivering. So if they're asking for a website and a customized identity package with logo and that kind of thing, and all those, all that kind of stuff, and social media and taking care of their social media feeds. If you don't deliver on any bit of that, that could put your 2% in jeopardy, which means you get 0 for all the other work that you did. So it gets back to what Alan was talking about earlier. Always try to get paid something up front before you start working, because they may never pay you on the back end. So you want to make sure that your clients at least have skin in the game, and also that you've at least, and normally when I do that structure for a proposal, I make sure that the entire costs of the project, so if I have to hire people, I need materials, whatever, are covered with that initial deposit. So at least I'm not losing any money. I may lose my time, part of my time, but I won't lose my money. I won't be losing money on stuff that is dedicated, that I actually have to pay for.
Okay, great. All right, so we've gotten a bunch of great information and insights from Kevin, Courtney, and Carl. Are there any other questions? No, everyone's good? All right, so I want to share my screen once more, if I could do this appropriately, and of course I can't. Lindsay, you want to share your screen? So we could just
Give me
show,
1 sec.
yeah, sorry, we could show the springboard to launch QR code once more, and then we also have a code for suitable points. In the meanwhile, Kevin, Courtney, Carl, if you would like to go back to earning money, you are welcome to. We thank you very much. The insights, the information were all great. And hopefully, Kevin, you'll have a bunch of new clients over at Truist soon. And Courtney, you will have at your design company. Tell us your design company name again.
Dear fellow.
Okay. And we did put the code in chat earlier, or for Instagram and LinkedIn. And Carl, we know you're going to have a ton of traffic at SBDC. Okay, so again, here's a springboard to launch. If any of this is interesting to you, and I see some of you commenting, please come in.